My name is Ivette Reyes, 16 years old. The night my uncle Tobias got out of prison for the second time, our kitchen felt like a courtroom. The fluorescent light buzzed faintly above the counter, reflecting off a half-empty glass of wine. Mom paced back and forth, her heels tapping sharp, nervous rhythms on the tile, while Garrett sat at the head of the table like a judge waiting to deliver his verdict. He didn't say much at first. He didn't have to. His presence filled the room, calm and certain, like he was used to being obeyed. "Under no circumstances do you talk to him," Mom said, pointing at me with a trembling hand. Her voice cracked, then steadied. "Tobias is dangerous. He's manipulative. He'll fill your head with lies about this family." Garrett nodded solemnly. "Your uncle has serious problems, kiddo. Drug dealing, assault charges. The man can't be trusted around anyone, especially not young girls." I looked down at the table, tracing my fingertip along a coffee ring I hadn't noticed before. Mom's words were sharp. Garrett's tone was softer, almost fatherly. That made it worse somehow. Even Grandma, who barely left her house anymore, had whispered her warnings. "He's poison, mija. That boy was born with darkness in him." I'd heard it all my life. Whispers of trouble, money gone missing, stories of fights and arrests that blurred together into one sad, inevitable pattern. So I believed them. Why wouldn't I? That night, I lay awake, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, thinking about the man I hadn't seen in 8 years. I remembered his laugh, loud, contagious, a little reckless. I remembered how, before Dad died, Tobias would lift me onto his shoulders at the county fair so I could see the fireworks. But people change. Prison changes them more. The next afternoon at school, I almost forgot about him until I saw the beat-up Honda parked across the street. My stomach dropped. He was leaning against the hood, arms crossed, wearing clothes that had clearly seen better days. His face looked older, harder, scarred from whatever had happened during his last stint inside. When our eyes met, he didn't smile. He just watched me with this intense, unreadable expression that made my heart pound. I quickened my pace and climbed onto the bus without looking back, but I could feel his gaze following me all the way until the doors closed. The next day he was there again, and the day after that. I started taking the back exit, cutting through the gym, even hiding in the bathroom until the buses left. But somehow, he always knew. By Friday, I was exhausted from pretending not to notice him. I was halfway across the parking lot when he finally approached me. "We need to talk," he said quietly. His voice was deeper than I remembered, rough around the edges. "Stay away from me," I snapped, my pulse spiking. "I'll call the police." "Please," he said, stepping back slightly. "It's about your stepdad. You're in danger, and you don't even know it." I froze. "Garrett?" "He's the one who told me to stay away from you." Something flickered across his face. Pain, frustration, maybe both. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," he muttered. "Ask yourself why he doesn't want us talking." Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with my heart hammering in my throat. That night at dinner, the world felt off balance. Garrett was his usual self, calm, collected, asking about my grades, making Mom laugh with some dumb joke about his coworkers, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Tobias had said. When I looked at Garrett's hands, steady as he cut his steak, I remembered the tiny tremor in Tobias's voice when he said danger. "Everything all right, kiddo?" Garrett asked, watching me a little too closely. "Fine," I lied. Mom smiled, though her eyes were tired. "You've barely touched your food. Are you sure you're not coming down with something?" "Just tired," I said again. Garrett's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "No one's been bothering you at school, right?" The way he emphasized bothering made my stomach twist. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder, the floor creak outside my room, the hum of Garrett's office printer downstairs. I tried to tell myself Tobias was manipulating me, just like everyone said, but then I remembered something strange from last month. I'd come home early from soccer practice and heard Garrett talking on the phone in his office. The door was cracked, just enough for me to catch a few words. "The shipment needs to disappear. Can't let anyone find out." The moment he saw me in the hallway, his expression shifted. The easy smile appeared like a mask sliding into place. "Hey, kiddo," he'd said. "You're home early. Everything okay?" I'd laughed awkwardly, said something about homework, and walked away. I told myself I'd misheard. But lying in bed now, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe Tobias wasn't lying. By Monday, Tobias was gone from his usual spot. I told myself I was relieved, but the hollow ache in my chest said otherwise. Tuesday, he was back. He didn't try to talk this time, just handed me a folded piece of paper and walked away. "Read this when you're alone," he said. "Then decide who you want to believe." I waited until I got home, locked my bedroom door, and unfolded it. Inside was a newspaper clipping, yellowed at the edges. The headline read, "Local man testifies against drug operation, sentence for related charges." The article described how Tobias Rivera had been arrested 8 years earlier for possession, but had agreed to testify against a larger distribution ring in exchange for a reduced sentence. The operation, it said, was being run through a construction company, Garrett's construction company. My hands trembled as I read it again, and again. It explained how Tobias had been working for Garrett when he discovered what was really going on, how he'd tried to quit but Garrett had threatened him, how, when Tobias went to the police, Garrett planted drugs in his apartment to discredit him. The article said several witnesses had been intimidated or had disappeared before the trial. Tobias had still testified, and while the primary suspects had escaped justice, prosecutors managed to convict several mid-level operators. Tobias got 3 years for possession and conspiracy, despite cooperating. I read the article 5 times before it finally sank in. Garrett wasn't some innocent businessman caught in Tobias's mess. He'd been the one running it all. And Tobias, the uncle I'd been taught to fear, had tried to stop him. I stared at the clipping for a long time, the words blurring through tears I didn't remember starting to cry. Outside, the wind rattled the window. Somewhere downstairs, I heard Garrett's laugh again, warm, practiced, safe. But for the first time, it didn't sound safe at all. That night, I hid the newspaper clipping under my mattress and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The truth, or what might be the truth, hummed in my skull like a low electric current. When morning came, I felt like I'd stepped into a different house. The air itself had changed. Garrett greeted me at the kitchen table with his usual bright smile. "Morning, kiddo. Pancakes today." He flipped one onto my plate. "Fuel for champions." Mom laughed softly, wearing that silk robe he'd bought her last Christmas. To anyone else, we looked like the perfect family. Warm kitchen, breakfast smells, soft music playing in the background. But now every sound felt staged, rehearsed. When Garrett's phone buzzed, he turned it over quickly, face down. My eyes caught a glimpse of a message preview. "Maple Street delivery confirmed." I froze. "Everything okay?" Mom asked, pouring syrup on Quinn's plate. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. But inside, my thoughts spun like a carousel I couldn't step off. Maple Street. Delivery. That was the name of one of Garrett's construction projects, wasn't it? The one he said was behind schedule? At school, I couldn't focus. I kept seeing Tobias's face, the exhausted lines around his eyes, the quiet desperation when he said, "You're in danger." By afternoon, I made up my mind. I had to find him again. He was waiting near the back parking lot, sitting on the hood of that same old Honda, as if he'd known I'd come. The winter sun hit the side of his face, and for the first time I noticed how pale he looked. "You read it," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." He nodded, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. The wind caught the smoke and carried it away. "Then you know." "I know what the article said," I replied, "but I don't know if I believe it." He exhaled, eyes lowering. "Fair." A long pause. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start from the beginning." Tobias stared at the asphalt for a while before speaking. "I was working for Garrett about 10 years ago. Good money, steady work. Back then, your mom had just started dating him." He hesitated. "She was happy, happier than I'd seen her since your dad died. I wanted to believe Garrett was the reason. Hell, I liked the guy at first." I didn't interrupt. The wind rustled the chain-link fence behind us. "He was careful," Tobias continued. "At first it was little stuff, extra deliveries, late-night calls, packages locked in the truck. I figured maybe someone was stealing materials. Happens all the time. Then things got strange." He flicked the cigarette away. "One night I stayed late to finish a foundation pour. Garrett showed up at midnight with 3 guys I didn't know. They had duffel bags, heavy ones. They went straight into the back of the unfinished building. When they left, Garrett told me not to mention it to anyone, said it was confidential inventory. But I knew construction inventory doesn't come in unmarked black bags." He gave a small, humorless laugh. "A week later, one of those bags split open. It wasn't tools inside. It was bricks of cocaine." I stared at him, stunned. "The construction sites were perfect cover," he said quietly. "You've got trucks moving day and night. No one questions it. We had keys to half-finished buildings all over the county. Garrett used them to store product before distribution. When I tried to quit, he reminded me about my record, said no one would believe me if I started making trouble. He called me a junkie trying to ruin his reputation. The words made me shiver. I remembered Garrett's easy charm, how everyone at church smiled at him, how even the mayor shook his hand at the ribbon-cutting ceremony last summer. "You didn't go to the police?" I asked. "Oh, I did," his voice cracked. "And they sent me back to Garrett." He looked at me then, eyes red, voice low. "When the cops didn't bite, I started collecting evidence. Photos, names, license plates. I even wired my truck. Thought if I built a case strong enough, someone would listen." "What happened?" "I got sloppy." Tobias's jaw tightened. "Someone saw me taking pictures. A week later, the cops kicked down my door. They found drugs, Garrett's drugs, planted right in my closet. Anonymous tip. Neat little bow on the story." He laughed bitterly. "And who's going to believe the ex-con over the successful businessman dating a widow with a daughter to protect?" For a long time, neither of us spoke. Cars passed by on the main road, distant and meaningless. "They sentenced me to 3 years," he said. "And while I was inside, Garrett married your mom. I wrote to her. I begged her to listen. You know what she said?" I shook my head. "She said I was jealous. Said I couldn't stand seeing her happy after losing your dad. Garrett told her I was trying to break them up out of spite." My throat tightened. "So that's when the family meeting started. The warnings." He nodded. "Garrett told everyone I was unstable, violent. He made sure your mom got a restraining order. Said I threatened you." I swallowed hard. "And now?" "Now you're 17, he said softly. "In less than a year, you'll be legally an adult. Garrett's been asking questions about your plans after high school." I frowned. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that sound like recruitment." He looked at me grimly. "He's grooming you, Ivette. Making sure you depend on him. Isolating you, just like he isolated your mom. Same tactics he used on me." I thought about all the times Garrett had discouraged me from getting a job or joining clubs that kept me late after school. The way he'd insisted on driving me everywhere instead of letting me take the bus. How he'd suggested maybe college wasn't necessary, that I could learn real skills working for his company. A chill ran down my spine. "What does he want me to do?" I whispered. "Same thing he wanted me to do," Tobias said. "Transport packages. Keep your mouth shut. You're a clean, respectable teenage girl. No one suspects teenage girls." I felt sick. "How do you even know all this?" I asked. "Because I've been watching," he said simply, "following him, documenting everything for 3 years. I've got photos, surveillance footage, bank records, enough to put him away for life." "Then why not take it to the police?" He shook his head. "Because I tried that once. Garrett owns half the cops in this town. The other half owe him favors." He opened his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "That's why I need the FBI. Federal charges. I've got contacts now, people who aren't on his payroll, but I need one more thing. Proof that he's still active." "What kind of proof?" "Current evidence, not old photos or reports. I need him caught in the act." And that's when I realized why Tobias had been waiting for me outside school all this time. "You want me to help you?" I said. He met my eyes. "I want you to save yourself. And your mom. Because when this goes down, Garrett's going to burn everything around him to stay clean." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain. Tobias's cigarette burned down to a tiny ember before he flicked it away. "I know you're scared," he said quietly. "But if you do nothing, he wins. And he'll keep winning." For a long time, I said nothing. Just stared at the cracked pavement between us. Finally, I whispered, "Tell me what to do." The plan sounded simple when Tobias said it, but in my head it was chaos. I kept replaying his instructions over and over. Plant the cameras, copy Garrett's files, photograph the safe, get the footage out quietly. Every sentence felt like a trap waiting to be sprung. That night, I barely ate. Garrett asked about my day, but I could hardly look at him. I thought about the manila envelope Tobias had shown me, thick with evidence. Somewhere inside it were photos of Garrett shaking hands with criminals, exchanging envelopes of cash, smiling that same easy smile he used at family dinners. I waited until Garrett's footsteps faded upstairs, and Mom turned off the television. Then I crept to the hallway and studied the door to his office. The lock was newer than I remembered, a keypad instead of a knob. He'd upgraded it sometime in the last year. From inside, faint blue light flickered against the floorboards. He must have left his computer on. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. I typed in Mom's birthday, holding my breath. The lock clicked open. Inside, Garrett's office smelled like cologne and printer toner. Blueprints covered one wall, and neat stacks of documents lined his desk. The soft hum of the computer filled the room. On the screen was an open spreadsheet labeled Client Transfers, Confidential. I didn't dare touch it. Instead, I scanned the bookshelves for a hiding spot. Behind a row of old construction manuals, I placed the tiny camera Tobias had given me, a device so small it looked like a black button. He'd told me it had a wide-angle lens and built-in microphone disguised to record on motion. The tiny LED light blinked once, then vanished. As I turned to leave, floorboards creaked upstairs. My pulse exploded. I dove behind Garrett's desk, just as footsteps approached. "Ivette, you in here?" His voice was calm but suspicious. I clamped my hand over my mouth. His bare feet padded across the carpet. I saw the shadow of his legs near the desk. He checked the window latch, muttered something, then moved toward the safe. I risked a glance. He pressed a sequence on the keypad, 6 digits, but his body blocked my view. I counted hand movements instead. Right, up, down, left, down. He pulled out a folder, flipped through it, and returned it to the safe. Then, without warning, he turned toward the desk. My lungs locked. I could see the edge of his robe brushing the carpet inches from my face. After a pause that felt eternal, he turned off the light and walked out, shutting the door behind him. I waited 10 full minutes before crawling out. My knees shook so hard I had to lean against the desk. Back in my room, I pressed my pillow to my chest to muffle the sound of my breathing. I had done it. The camera was in. But the fear didn't fade. It deepened. The next morning, I met Tobias in a deserted park before school. He was sitting on a picnic table, laptop open, cigarette already burning between his fingers. "Test run," he said. "Let's see if your camera works." He clicked a few keys, and there it was. Garrett's office, perfectly framed. His desk, the safe, the faint ticking of the wall clock. The feed was crystal clear, sound and all. "That's incredible," I whispered. "Expensive," Tobias said with a dry smile, "but worth it." Over the next few days, we gathered hours of footage. Garrett talking on the phone, Garrett signing documents, Garrett meeting with 2 men I didn't recognize, one bald, one wearing a leather jacket. They always arrived late, stayed briefly, left with envelopes. Tobias leaned closer to the screen. "That's cash movement, no doubt." "What now?" I asked. "Now we get the safe." "I don't know the code." "Watch him," Tobias said. "People are creatures of habit. Same birthdays, same numbers." For the next week, I studied Garrett like a scientist observing a specimen. I watched the way his fingers moved on the safe's keypad, trying to match the pattern. One night when he wasn't looking, I noticed something. Mom's birthday, followed by the year they married. 6 digits. I wrote them down on a sticky note and hid it in my shoe. Friday came. Mom went to her book club. Garrett took a shower. The moment I heard water running, I slipped into his office and entered the code. The safe clicked open. Inside were neat stacks of cash, more money than I'd ever seen. Envelopes labeled with company names, USB drives, and a small black ledger. I snapped pictures of everything. The ledger's pages were filled with handwritten notes, dates, amounts, initials, and cryptic codes. But one phrase appeared over and over: MS, Maple, Saint, 11 p.m. My heart pounded as I photographed the pages. Then I saw something that made my stomach turn. Photos. Dozens of them. Surveillance shots of people I didn't recognize, some in construction uniforms, others in parking lots. On the back of one, Garrett had written, "Tony R. talks too much." I remembered Tobias's words about accidents. Suddenly, those workplace deaths didn't look like coincidences. I forced everything back into place, shut the safe, and bolted to my room. Tobias was waiting the next morning, dark circles under his eyes. When I showed him the pictures, his face went pale. "Jesus," he whispered. "He's been killing anyone who might talk." "So what do we do?" He closed the laptop slowly. "We catch him in the act." The way he said it made my skin crawl. "There's a pattern," Tobias explained. "Every 2 weeks, Garrett meets someone at the Maple Street site. Always Friday, always 11 at night. That's where the shipments move." "Shipments," I repeated. He nodded. "We set up surveillance. Cameras hidden across the site. We get him on film transferring product, taking payments, talking names. It's risky, but if we nail this, it's federal-level evidence." My throat went dry. "And if he sees you?" He met my eyes. "That's why I need your help." I hesitated. "What kind of help?" "A distraction," he said simply. "While I plant the cameras, you keep him busy." I almost laughed. It sounded insane. How? Doesn't matter. Fake an emergency. Call him home. Anything that buys me 30 minutes. I stared at him, realizing what he was really asking. Not just help, but trust. After a long silence, I nodded. Okay. Tobias exhaled. Good girl. The words made me flinch, not because of him, but because Garrett said them too. That night, I watched the house through my bedroom window. Garrett's truck was parked in the driveway, gleaming under the porch light. Mom was on the couch, reading. Everything looked normal, safe, familiar. But I knew that by next Friday, nothing would be normal again. Because in 7 days, I'd be lying to my family to help the man they swore would destroy us. And I wasn't even sure anymore who the real danger was. Friday night arrived faster than I wanted it to. All week, my nerves buzzed like live wires beneath my skin. Garrett noticed, of course. You've been quiet lately, he said over dinner, cutting his steak with slow, precise strokes. Something on your mind? I forced a smile. Just midterms. He nodded, pretending to believe me. Don't burn yourself out. You're too young to be that serious. The way he said it, like he was testing me, made my pulse quicken. Mom was busy talking about her book club's next meeting, oblivious to the quiet tension pulsing between us. I excused myself early, saying I needed to study. Upstairs, I sat on my bed with my phone in my hands, waiting for the clock to crawl toward 10:30. My palms were slick with sweat. Every instinct screamed that this was insane. Tobias's voice echoed in my head. He's dangerous, Ivette. You can't give him time to suspect. At exactly 10:28, I called Garrett from the house phone. I made my voice tremble. Garrett, I think someone's outside. I heard something by my window. What? His tone sharpened immediately. Where's your mom? She's not home yet. Please hurry. Lock your door. Stay put. I'm coming right now. The line went dead. I hung up and exhaled shakily. Across town, Tobias would be moving, planting cameras, setting traps. My part was just to keep Garrett away long enough. When Garrett's truck pulled into the driveway 20 minutes later, headlights cutting through the living room curtains, I ran downstairs pretending to cry. He burst through the door, scanning the shadows with the flashlight from his phone. Where? He demanded. I don't know. I heard knocking, maybe scratching. He walked the perimeter of the house, every movement sharp, deliberate. Nothing out here, he muttered. Probably just a raccoon. He turned back to me, eyes softening. You did the right thing calling me, kiddo. Better safe than sorry. I nodded, hugging myself, forcing a shaky breath. His concern sounded genuine, but I could see the faint edge beneath it. A calculation. If he could act this well here, what else could he fake? When Mom's car finally pulled into the driveway, I nearly collapsed with relief. Garrett kissed her cheek, told her everything was fine, and disappeared into his office to make a few calls. I slipped upstairs and sent a single text to Tobias's burner number. He's home. You're clear. No reply came, but I hadn't expected one. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, waiting for a message, a signal, something. Around 1 a.m., I heard Garrett moving in his office again. I crept to the railing, peering through the dark. His back was turned, his voice low, serious. Deliveries confirmed. Same place. Maple Street, 11 p.m. Don't be late. Then silence. He closed the office door and turned off the light. The next morning, Tobias was waiting at our usual meeting spot, this time with a laptop and coffee that had long gone cold. His face looked drawn, tense. Everything worked, he said without preamble. The cameras are in. Perfect coverage. Entrances. Loading zone. Garrett's usual spot. I exhaled in relief. You got it done? Barely, he said, rubbing his temple. Security guard showed up early. Had to hide in the electrical room for 20 minutes. What happens now? He clicked play. The live feed flickered to life. An empty construction site, metal scaffolding glinting under streetlights. Now, he said, we wait. For a week, the waiting was torture. Garrett acted like nothing was different. He joked at dinner, dropped Quinn off at school, fixed a broken cabinet hinge in the kitchen. Every smile felt like a weapon. On Thursday, he mentioned casually, big delivery tomorrow night. Maple Street's behind schedule again. My heart nearly stopped. Mom sighed. Can't your team handle it? You've been working too hard. Garrett smiled faintly. This one's special. I like to be there personally. He said it lightly, but I could hear the weight in his words. Tomorrow night would be the night. Friday evening I could barely eat. Tobias texted at 9:42 p.m. All set. Cameras live. Keep your phone close. By 10:55, my hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped it. Through Tobias's feed, I watched Garrett's truck pull up to the site. 3 other vehicles followed. Dark SUVs with tinted windows. Men stepped out, moving with practiced precision, carrying large boxes from the back of a delivery truck. The audio was clear. Garrett's voice echoed through the feed. 200 kilos, just like you promised. Payment due tomorrow. Same account. One of the men grunted. You'll get it. Same as last time. Tobias whispered beside me from the passenger seat of his car, laptop balanced on his knees. This is it. This is the proof. But then something shifted in the video. One of the men stopped, tilting his head toward the scaffolding. Hold up, he said. What's that light? Tobias's body tensed. No, no, no. Garrett followed the man's gaze to the window. The reflection from one of the hidden cameras shimmered faintly. Someone's watching us, the man barked. They drew their guns. I gasped. Tobias? He slammed the laptop shut. He found me. Get out of there, I cried. I'll handle it, he said, already starting the car. I grabbed his arm. You can't! He met my eyes, calm, resigned. If I run now, it's over. Everything we built goes up in smoke. Then he was gone. I watched through his windshield as he sprinted across the street toward the site, shadows swallowing him whole. A gunshot cracked the air, followed by shouting. Panicking, I dialed 911. There's a shooting at the Maple Street construction site, I said, voice shaking. Multiple armed men. Please, send someone. The dispatcher tried to keep me on the line, but I hung up and dialed Tobias's number. Straight to voicemail. Tobias, get out, I begged into the phone. They know. Please, get out. No answer. I looked back at the laptop screen. The feed was chaos. Blurred movement. Shouts. Gunfire. Then black. And then silence. The next morning, the news mentioned a disturbance at a local construction site. No injuries reported. No arrests made. But Tobias didn't call. He didn't text. By Saturday evening, I drove to his apartment complex, heart pounding. His car wasn't in the parking lot. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, knocking on his door until my knuckles ached. No answer. The window near the fire escape was cracked open. I climbed through. Inside, the apartment was empty. Not just empty, sterile. No furniture, no clothes, no dishes. Even the dust had been wiped away. On the kitchen counter lay a single envelope with my name written in careful block letters. Inside was a key and a short letter. If you're reading this, something went wrong. The key opens Unit 247 on Industrial Boulevard. Everything you need is there. Don't trust anyone in law enforcement. Garrett owns too many of them. Take the evidence to the FBI office in the Capitol. Ask for Agent Veronica Mills. Tell her Tobias sent you. Whatever you do, don't go home. He knows. At the bottom, written in darker ink, were 4 chilling words. He's coming for you. The key trembled in my hand. The world had gone silent. I didn't even stop to pack. I just ran. The drive to Industrial Boulevard felt like moving through a dream. One of those heavy, soundless dreams where the air itself resists you. Rain tapped on the windshield, faint at first, then steady, like a pulse that wouldn't stop. The city lights blurred into streaks of red and gold as I drove through the sleeping streets. Every passing car made me flinch. Every headlight in the rearview mirror felt like it was following me. When I finally reached the storage facility, it was nearly midnight. The sign buzzed faintly. Industrial self-storage. 24-hour access. Rows of metal doors stretched endlessly under flickering fluorescent lights. I parked near the end of the row, heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. Unit 247. The key Tobias had left was cold in my hand. I hesitated before sliding it into the lock. Somewhere deep down, I expected Garrett to appear behind me, smiling that calm, perfect smile. But the only sound was the rain. The door rolled upward with a metallic groan. The smell hit me first. Dust, oil, and paper, mixed with something faintly metallic. Inside were boxes stacked chest high, all labeled in Tobias's handwriting. I flipped open the nearest one. Files, receipts, photographs, USB drives. My hands shook as I picked up a folder marked Construction, Maple Saint. Inside were invoices, blueprints, shipping manifests, evidence of false contracts, and shell companies. Each document was dated, cross-referenced, and signed by Garrett himself. In the corner sat an old video camera with a piece of tape across it. In Tobias's handwriting, it said, "Watch this first." My throat tightened. I hit play. The footage was grainy, time-stamped, just the night before. The angle showed a dark construction site, the same Maple Street building. Garrett and his men were there, moving boxes, their voices faint through the static. Then I heard Tobias's whisper. "If you're watching this, Ivette, it means I didn't make it out." My breath caught. But that's okay. I knew this was coming. I knew Garrett wouldn't let me live forever. He's too careful, too proud. Every day since I got out of prison, I've been waiting for him to decide I was a loose end. He moved through shadows as he spoke, the camera shaking in his hands. In the background, I could hear muffled voices. Garrett's voice, calm and controlled. "You have to know the truth," Tobias continued. "Everything I told you was real. The drugs, the money, the deaths. Your stepfather runs it all, and he's planning to pull you in next. I tried to stop him once. I failed, but you can finish what I started." Gunshots cracked in the distance. Tobias ducked behind a wall. "They found the cameras," he whispered. "I won't make it out of here alive. But the evidence, the hard drives, the ledgers, the accounts, it's all in the storage unit. Take it to the FBI. Ask for Agent Veronica Mills. She's the only one not on his payroll." Another shot rang out, closer this time. Tobias turned the camera toward the commotion. Garrett appeared in the frame, stepping through the dust and shadows. "Well, well, Tobias Rivera," Garrett said, his voice cold and almost amused. "Thought you were smarter than this." Tobias's breathing was ragged. 5 years in prison taught me patience," he said quietly. "I know everything." "You know nothing," Garrett snapped. "And now you're going to disappear, just like the others." "The difference," Tobias said, "is I'm not going down alone." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a grenade. The camera jolted as he held it up, thumb pressing the safety lever. "Dead man's switch," he said. "I let go. We all die." Garrett froze. His voice dropped. "You're bluffing." "Try me." For a long, breathless moment, the camera just trembled, capturing 2 men locked in a deadly standoff. Then Garrett's voice came again, low, calculated. "What do you want?" "I want to walk out of here," Tobias said. "I want 24 hours to disappear, and you leave Ivette alone." Garrett's eyes flicked toward the ground. "She knows?" "She knows enough." "You told her," Garrett hissed. "You told her everything." "I told her the truth, something you never could." "You think the FBI is going to save her?" Garrett said. "They can't protect anyone from me." "We'll see about that." Silence stretched. Then Garrett lowered his gun. "Fine, 24 hours. But if I see you again—" "You won't," Tobias said. He started backing away, the camera following his shaky retreat. Then, just before he turned the corner, he added, almost softly, "One more thing, Garrett." Garrett frowned. "What?" "I lied about the dead man's switch." And then the screen filled with fire. The explosion roared through the speakers. The camera clattered to the ground, the image splintering into static. For a moment, I saw Garrett's silhouette stumbling through smoke, blood streaking his face. Then nothing. The footage ended. I sat in the storage unit for what felt like an hour, staring at the frozen screen. My uncle, the man I'd been told was poison, a criminal, a liar, had died trying to protect me. When I finally stood, my knees barely held me. I opened another box. Inside were bank statements, offshore transfers, even photos of Garrett with city officials, handshakes and smiles that now looked sinister. I stuffed as much as I could into a duffel bag, USB drives, files, Tobias's hard drives, and slammed the unit door shut. The rain outside had stopped, but the air still smelled of iron and fear. As I started the car, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have gone there." My chest went cold. The rearview mirror reflected only darkness, but I could feel eyes on me. I floored the gas and didn't stop driving until I hit the freeway. 6 hours. That's how long it would take to reach the FBI field office in the Capitol. 6 hours to outrun Garrett. 6 hours to finish what Tobias started. The highway stretched endlessly ahead of me, black ribbon cutting through rain and fog. Each mile felt heavier than the one before. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other on the duffel bag in the passenger seat, as if it could anchor me. Inside were the files, drives, ledgers, proof of everything. Proof that my entire life had been a lie. By the time I reached the outskirts of the Capitol, the sun had started to rise, bleeding pale orange light over the skyline. My body ached, my eyes burned, and I couldn't tell if the shivering was from exhaustion or fear. The FBI field office stood in a nondescript concrete building, surrounded by chain-link fencing and security cameras. I parked a block away, double-checking every shadow before stepping out. The bag felt impossibly heavy slung over my shoulder. Inside, a receptionist with sharp eyes and a clipped tone asked who I was there to see. My voice cracked when I said the name, Agent Veronica Mills. She frowned, typed something into her computer, then nodded. Take a seat. Minutes later, a woman in her 40s appeared. Short dark hair, trench coat, no-nonsense energy. Ivette Reyes, no? She asked. I stood. Tobias Rivera sent me. Her expression shifted immediately. Come with me. We walked through metal detectors and sterile hallways that smelled faintly of disinfectant. She led me into a small conference room with a metal table and 2 chairs. I dropped the duffel bag onto the table with a heavy thud. What's this? She asked. Evidence, I said, against Garrett Lewis, my stepfather. The name froze her hand midair. She unzipped the bag, flipping through folders, scanning USB drives, photos. When she looked back at me, the skepticism was gone. You know what you've just done bringing this here? I think so, I whispered. She exhaled slowly. We've been investigating Garrett Lewis for 2 years. Construction front for narcotics trafficking, racketeering, money laundering. Every time we got close, evidence disappeared. Witnesses vanished. Her eyes softened. Your uncle was one of our informants, wasn't he? I nodded. He told me about you. He said you were the only one who wasn't on Garrett's payroll. Agent Mills smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. He was right. She began laying everything out. The federal warrants they'd prepared but never executed. The files Tobias had sent anonymously from prison years ago. The suspicion that Garrett had people inside law enforcement feeding him intel. That's why we've been quiet, she said. Every time we shared intel locally, it leaked. He always knew when we were coming. I swallowed hard. He knows I have the evidence. He left a message. He's coming for me. Her expression darkened. Then we moved fast. Over the next 48 hours, I barely slept. The FBI worked like a hive of controlled chaos. Agents printing warrants, coordinating teams, briefing field units across 3 states. They planned to hit every one of Garrett's known properties at once. His house, his office, his construction sites, his storage facilities. Agent Mills kept me close, under constant watch. If he finds out you're alive, he'll try to make you disappear too, she warned. Still, I couldn't stop worrying about Mom and Quinn. I need to call her, I said. Warn her. Mills shook her head. If you contact her, he'll trace the call. We'll handle her safety. But that night, in the quiet of the safe house where they kept me, I couldn't resist. I called from a secure phone they'd given me. When Mom answered, her voice was shaky. Ivette, where are you? Garrett said you ran away. Mom, listen to me. You have to get out of the house, right now. What are you talking about? Garrett isn't who you think he is. He's been using his construction company to smuggle drugs. Tobias was trying to expose him. That's why he went to prison. Garrett framed him. Silence. Then a soft laugh that broke my heart. Sweetheart, you're repeating the same lies Tobias told years ago. Garrett warned me he might try to... Mom, I cut her off. Tobias is dead. Garrett killed him. There was an explosion at the Maple Street site. It wasn't an accident. Her breath caught. You're mistaken. Garrett was home that night. He took care of me. He said Tobias tried to hurt him. No, Mom, I whispered. Tobias saved me. I can't listen to this, she said, voice trembling. You're confused. Please, come home. We can figure this out together. Ivette, I love you, I said quickly, choking on the words. Just please be careful. Then I hung up. When I told Agent Mills, she didn't scold me. She just sighed, rubbing her temple. We'll put a team near the house. Whether she believes you or not, she's in danger now. The next morning, the raids began. I watched from a conference room as screens showed live drone feeds and security footage. SWAT teams stormed Garrett's construction sites, his private storage lots, his company headquarters. The results were staggering. Stacks of cash, bags of narcotics, encrypted hard drives, weapons caches. Every floor plan matched Tobias's notes perfectly. But there was one problem. Garrett was gone, and so was my family. Mills slammed the report onto the table. He disappeared between 2 and 5 a.m., took your mother and brother, left the house spotless. My stomach twisted. He must have known. He always knows, she muttered. Someone tipped him off, or he planned an exit months ago. They traced his bank accounts, empty. His phone, deactivated. His truck, abandoned in a warehouse district miles away. He's running, Mills said grimly. Mexico, maybe. He's got connections there. Offshore accounts, new identities, safe houses in non-extradition countries. So what happens now? I asked, voice small. Now, she said, we hunt him. Days passed in a blur of reports, warrants, and news coverage. Every channel called it the biggest drug bust in state history. Garrett Lewis, the respected contractor, philanthropist, family man, was now a fugitive. But every time they showed his photo on TV, all I could see was the man who used to braid my hair when I was little. The man who made Mom laugh again after Dad died. The man who had ruined everything. On the 8th day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Ivette? It was Mom. Her voice was shaking like she'd been crying. Mom, where are you? Are you safe? I'm fine, but he wants to see you. My heart stopped. Garrett? He says he can explain everything. He just wants to talk. Please, honey, he's not what you think. Mom, don't do this, I pleaded. He's dangerous. He's using you. In the background, I heard a faint, calm male voice. Tell her to meet us. Mom, where are you? She hesitated. An old warehouse, off Harbor Road. He said if you bring the FBI, he can't guarantee my safety. The line went dead. I stood frozen, the phone pressed to my ear, the echo of her words still vibrating in the air. When I turned, Agent Mills was already standing in the doorway, face pale but resolute. It's a trap, she said. He wants to finish what he started. But he has my family, I whispered. I know, Mills said quietly. And we're going to get them back. The night Garrett demanded to meet felt colder than any winter I could remember. The FBI prepared for it like a war. Agents in unmarked vans surrounded the perimeter of the abandoned warehouse on Harbor Road. A dim orange glow from broken streetlights spilled across the wet pavement. Inside one of the vans, Agent Mills adjusted my wire, her hands steady even as her jaw clenched. You'll go in alone, she said. We'll be listening the whole time. The second he moves against you, we move. I nodded, trying not to let her see my shaking hands. What if he makes me choose between him and them? Then stall, Mills said quietly. We'll handle the rest. She squeezed my shoulder. You've already done the impossible, Ivette. Just one more step. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stepped out into the night. The warehouse loomed like a skeleton of steel and rust. Every step I took echoed through the empty space. My heart pounded in rhythm with the crunch of gravel beneath my boots. When I reached the center of the building, I saw them, Mom and Quinn, tied to chairs under a flickering overhead light. Garrett stood beside them, a gun in his hand. Hello, sweetheart, he said. His voice was smooth, almost gentle. You look tired. Let them go, I said, forcing the tremor out of my voice. He tilted his head. This isn't about them. It's about family, about loyalty. You call this loyalty? I spat. You framed Tobias. You murdered people who trusted you. Garrett's expression didn't change. Tobias was weak. He brought it on himself. He tried to protect us. He laughed, short and bitter. Protect you? He destroyed us. I gave your mother everything, security, a home, a future, and he tried to rip it away because he couldn't stand seeing her happy. Mom stirred, her voice breaking. Garrett, please. He turned sharply. Quiet. I took a step forward. You're lying. Garrett's eyes softened with something almost human. Pity, maybe. You think the world is black and white, don't you? Good men, bad men. But when your father died, your mother was drowning in debt. The medical bills alone would have bankrupted her. The house, the cars, the clothes on your back, all of it came from what I built. The business kept this family alive. You built it on blood, I said. He raised the gun slightly, just enough to remind me who had the power. I built it on sacrifice. There's a difference. Quinn squirmed in his chair. Garrett, please don't do this. Garrett's eyes flicked to him, and for a moment something cracked. Guilt, maybe. Then it was gone. You're too young to understand, son. Everything I did for you. I could hear Mill's voice in my earpiece, whispering directions. Keep him talking. Don't let him move them. I took another step forward. If this is about family, then prove it. Let them go. Take me instead. He smiled sadly. You always were brave, just like your uncle. His tone shifted then, lower, darker. He said the same thing to me, you know. The night I killed him. My blood ran cold. You killed him yourself. Garrett didn't answer right away. He looked past me, lost somewhere far away. He pulled the pin, Ivette. I didn't have a choice. That's not what the video shows. His eyes snapped to mine. What video? The one Tobias recorded before he died. The FBI has it. They have everything. Your ledgers, your accounts, your contacts. His face twisted. You think they'll protect you? They'll use you and bury you. That's what they do. He took a slow step toward me, and I could hear my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. Garrett, stop, Mom cried. Stay back, he warned, waving the gun toward her. She shook her head, tears streaking her face. You don't have to do this. You can still walk away. His voice cracked. There's no walking away from this. I watched his finger tighten on the trigger. And then, in the space of a breath, everything happened at once. Quinn moved first. I didn't even see the glass shard until it was in his hand. He lunged forward, stabbing Garrett in the leg. Garrett howled, stumbling back, the gun firing into the ceiling. Run! Mom screamed. I dove for the ground as the warehouse erupted in chaos. The gun skidded across the floor. Garrett reached for it, but a thunder of boots echoed from every direction. FBI, drop the weapon! Agents poured in through every entrance, lights flashing, voices shouting. Garrett turned toward me, bleeding and furious. You think you won? He snarled. You'll regret this. Agent Mills tackled him from behind, knocking the gun away. The next moment, he was pinned to the ground, hands wrenched behind his back, wrists in cuffs. I crawled toward Mom and Quinn, tearing at the ropes with shaking hands. It's over, I whispered, though I barely believed it. Mom clung to me, sobbing. I thought he'd changed. I thought he loved us. He did, I said softly, just not the way love is supposed to look. Garrett was dragged past us, bleeding, but alive. As he passed, his eyes found mine. Calm again, unnervingly calm. I hope you understand someday, he said quietly. Everything I did was for you. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The agents hauled him away, and for the first time in months, the air felt clean. But as the sirens faded, I realized something chilling. Even in defeat, Garrett didn't look broken. He looked satisfied, like a man who still had one last secret left to play. 3 months later, the trial began. By then, Garrett's face was everywhere, on every news station, every headline, every local broadcast. Former contractor charged in largest drug and corruption case in state history. The footage from Tobias's camera, the ledgers, the offshore accounts, the photographs of victims, it all told the same story. Garrett Lewis had built his empire on blood. But no headline could capture the silence that hung over the courtroom the day he was sentenced. Mom and I sat together on the hard wooden bench, hands clasped tight. Quinn sat beside her, still pale, still haunted by that night in the warehouse. When Garrett entered, shackled and wearing an orange jumpsuit, a ripple moved through the room. He looked thinner, older, yet his eyes, those steady, commanding eyes, hadn't changed. The prosecutor spoke first, listing his crimes: trafficking, conspiracy, money laundering, murder. Each word felt like a hammer blow. Garrett didn't flinch. He sat perfectly still, gaze fixed on the judge. Then the verdict came. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. The gavel struck, sharp and final. And still Garrett smiled. As they led him away, he turned his head just enough to find me in the crowd. I hope you understand someday, he said softly, echoing the same words he'd spoken in the warehouse. Everything I did was for you and your family. I couldn't speak. There was nothing left to say. After that, everything blurred together. Interviews, debriefings, endless paperwork. The FBI agents praised Tobias's evidence, called it one of the most complete whistleblower dossiers they'd ever seen. Without him, they said, Garrett might never have been caught. But praise didn't make the nights easier. Mom started therapy. For weeks, she barely spoke. She'd sit by the window, staring at nothing, twisting her wedding ring until her fingers went red. When she finally took it off, she didn't cry. She just set it down and whispered, He never let me see who he really was. Quinn struggled too. For years, Garrett had been the only father he remembered. The man who taught him to fish, who helped him with science projects, who told him bedtime stories about bravery and loyalty. Learning that those stories were lies cut deeper than any wound. I tried to be strong for both of them. But every night, when the house went quiet, I heard Tobias's voice from that last recording. If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it out. We moved to another state, changed our last names, started over. The FBI arranged it quietly, under witness protection, but they let us choose the town. We picked one near the mountains. Quiet, green, the kind of place where no one asked too many questions. Our new house was small but warm. Mom planted roses out front. Quinn joined a local soccer team. Some days we even laughed again. But some nights I'd wake to the sound of wind against the windows, convinced I heard footsteps outside. Garrett's calm voice would echo in my head, I did it for you. I'd get up, check the locks, and remind myself he was behind bars for life, that he couldn't reach us anymore. And yet, I knew what Tobias meant when he said people like Garrett always left ghosts behind. Not the kind that haunt you with chains or shadows, but the kind that whisper doubts into every silence. Months later, we held a small memorial for Tobias, just the three of us. We drove out to a lake he used to fish at when I was little. The water was glassy, still, reflecting a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Mom brought a single white lily and a folded letter. She read it aloud, voice trembling. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I let fear make me blind. You saved us, even when we didn't deserve saving. Thank you for loving us enough to fight." She placed the letter on the water and watched it drift away. None of us spoke for a long time. When we finally drove home, the sunset burned deep orange behind the hills. For the first time in years, the air felt light. I've started college now. Criminal justice, of all things. The irony isn't lost on me. Some of my classmates talk about the system like it's clean, simple, black and white. They don't know what it costs to drag the truth into the light. They don't know that justice often comes too late, or that heroes sometimes wear the wrong face. Sometimes I think about Tobias sitting in that prison cell, planning for years, waiting for the day he could set us free. He never lived to see Garrett convicted. He never heard Mom apologize. He never saw me take back my life. But I think he knew. That's why he did it. Because that's who he was, the man everyone warned me about, the one they called dangerous, unstable, untrustworthy, the one they told me to avoid at all costs. He was the one who saved us. And Garrett, the man who tucked me in at night, who asked about my grades, who smiled like safety itself, he was the danger I never saw coming. Now, when people warn me about someone, I listen. But I also look deeper. Because I've learned that sometimes the person everyone fears is the one trying to protect you. And sometimes the person you trust most is the one holding the knife. The truth isn't always what it seems. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, sometimes behind a warning. Tobias taught me that truth. He paid for it with his life. And I'll spend the rest of mine making sure it wasn't in vain.